All right, all right.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back to another episode of The Blockument, where we do crypto education through everyday education, right? Nope, I got it reversed. Where we do crypto education through everyday conversation.
Yes.
And that's how you know it's everyday conversation, because I'm messing up on even their intro lines,
That's
right?
right.
My name's Nate Talbot. I'm the executive director of Detroit Blockchain Center, and I'm sitting here with...
I am Ashlee Rose. I am just your average girl from Detroit, Michigan. I'm on my journey to learn what all of this crypto business is about.
Yes, and you're doing quite a phenomenal job on that journey. Let me say, you're
Thank you.
coming right along, right along.
Thank you, thank you.
Today, we're going to be talking about crypto self-custody, the whys, the hows, and everything you need to know. If you listen to our last episode, we're going to have a different conversation.
Yes.
But a lot has happened over the past 2 weeks, 10 days or so in the space. And I think, really you thought, we think we both thought at the same time, crypto custody is really...
Yeah. Like, let's address the elephant in the room, basically.
Yeah. So, as always, this will probably be the tradition. Give me your side of things. What does crypto custody mean to you? Why is it important? Is it important? Is it possible?
Well, in the spirit of full transparency, I cheated a little bit. I went to a self-custody workshop yesterday.
Nice.
So I will say, let's see if I learned anything, right? So I would say self-custody is when it's kind of in the name, when you take custody, and so you have control and ownership over your coins or tokens. And then in that case, you would have full power over what happens to those coins, but with a couple of caveats.
What kind of caveats?
Well, as long as you are having them self-custodied in a decentralized way, I guess I would say. Because if you're self-custodying coins that are not censorship resistant, and the coin crashes, okay, sure, you hold on to all of those coins, but you're still like down. But you still own them, so it's still good.
Okay.
I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's kind of how because people are like, okay, because maybe people thinking self-custody, it's really safe. It is safe, but then it doesn't mean that like there's no potential to like lose money. Or value, I should say.
All right. So I think let's rewind it back a little bit. We're all here in this space, right?
Yeah.
Some of us are here for Bitcoin. Some of us are here for a multitude of things. Some of us are here just number go up. I think, in my opinion, a key thing for anybody who's dwelling in this space outside of potentially somebody who's a strict trading speculator, right? Somebody who's only interested in the dollar value, number go up type scenario, and they want to make a quick return. They're not talking about long-term investments. Right. They're talking about like, I'm buying this thing today and I'm going to sell it probably by this afternoon. The purpose of doing any of these decentralized projects has to do, with trust, right? Last night I was telling you a little earlier, like I'm up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was my YouTube. I just go to sleep listening to YouTube, and I don't know if it was a Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman with Mr. Twitter man Elon Musk was on there, and he just so happened to be they were talking about money, and Elon. I have my definition of what money is, which is really, being more of a Bitcoiner, I say money is just proof of work, right? A dollar is just proof that you put in work someplace, and that's how you store that value. Yeah. Elon's point was more that money is just information, right? Think of it more like a database structure. And that's interesting. I think both points can sort of be true. It is information. His point was, if I drop you on an island and you're alone and you have to make do for yourself, but you have $1 trillion, what does that money do for you?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing, right?
Maybe keeps you warm.
Exactly. Well, I mean, we already know money is a social construct, and that just sort of emphasizes that point, right? Money is a way to rely. It's a way to allocate resources, right? Yeah. On one end, if you have some money, the reason you have it is to allocate resources. How best can I move things around? And if you're looking for money because you need to allocate your own resources, you usually put in some work or investment time, right? You put in some kind of effort to generate money so you can store that value for reallocating the resources later. Yeah. The problem with money is, of course, we have to trust all these middlemen into it all, especially now when you have these fiat-backed monies generated by governments, and they can just sort of print them at will, right? What Bitcoin did was take all of that trust we need in the system for the institutions to make sure our money retains value. It removed the need for that trust, right? That's why it's called trustless. It's not that we don't trust anything, it's just that we trust the cryptography more than we trust the humans. Yeah. Right? So that's the one point, right? You have to have no trust in the system. And the other point is, if you're not trusting the system, then you want to trust minimize every phase of your crypto journey, let's say. Yeah. Right? So Bitcoin in and of itself is trustless, but how do I store my access to that Bitcoin, right? If you're keeping it on a centralized exchange, well, you've just reintroduced trust back in the system. The Bitcoin itself is decentralized, right? But you've given it the custody over to a centralized exchange, just like, historically and back in history, you would have gold. You couldn't custody all that gold. It was difficult. Yeah. So you would trust a bank to hold the gold for you, and then you would just go back and get it when you needed it. Yeah. But now you had to trust the bank. Yeah. And what happens if one day you show up at the bank and they're like, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, we lent that out.
Yeah, that's gone. Sorry. Come back tomorrow, maybe. Yeah. So if the whole point is to remove trust from the system, then why would you willingly reintroduce these trusted middlemen back into the system? What's the point of doing it in the first place? Besides, that's why we say the traders, right? If you're only holding it for 30 seconds because you're doing day trading, all right, you're not going to necessarily self-custody, although there are ways you can still take custody. And so that's sort of the why of self-custody, right? It's first you acquire it, then you want to hold it. And one of the ways, I like to imagine it is just like with dollars. Everybody here, grandma or great-grandma, they might have said like, I got my life savings stuffed under my cushion. Yeah. Right? That's self-custody. I don't trust the banks. Yeah. I'm not giving my money to a bank. I want my cash as quick as possible. I'll hold it. Yeah. I trust me and my hood more than I trust these bankers. Yeah. And with good reason. Absolutely. Right? So how do we do that in crypto? How do we do that with your Bitcoin? Especially when you acquire it, it's not self-custodied. Like when you buy, how do you turn your dollars into crypto? Well,
I've just been using like Coinbase and these trusted exchanges, and I know that there's a risk in that, but that's why I'm on a bit of a journey to learn self-custody, because I'd like to take back my ownership of my coins and hold them for myself.
Right. I'm sorry, I got distracted for the first time. I just looked down and saw your shirt, and I love the shirt.
Yeah, it's fitting, right?
Love the shirt, exactly. So then I got to find one and order one. All right.
I got you.
Correct. Website. You want to get it. It's really hard. When Bitcoin was first created, the idea was there were really going to be three ways you can really get it. The primary way was you could just set up a miner. It's permissionless. Right. So you set up a miner, and you for helping secure the network, You get paid in Bitcoin and some small transaction fees. So that's one way you could earn it. But of course, as mining grows, it becomes harder and harder for an average user to be a miner, although it's still possible. It's not as impossible as people think.
And is it true that mining is the most like private way, or like one of the most private ways of acquiring Bitcoin? Because you don't have to, like,
No.
you don't have to KYC, right? Like a
No, you don't have to. You don't have to KYC, but a side effect of mining is you have to use a lot of energy. That's the point. That's what gives that very base layer to a proof of work token is the energy you're spending. Bitcoin core value is you have to spend an external resource to get it. Well, that high energy usage can be tracked.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe not anybody can know where that coin was mined, but like a motivated enough actor like a
look
government
for, like, little surges
could probably.
Yeah. So you're not like signing in to like your,
you're not logging in.
your government information, but
Correct.
like there's ways that you could. Okay, I see.
Yeah, if you're not safe with it, if you're not using Tor and VPNs and all these other things that are difficult because with like a proof of work is about speed, right? And I don't want to get into proof of work, but it's not necessarily it's not the most private way to acquire Bitcoin, but it's one of the original ways conceived of. Like you can mine for it, you can work for it, right? So if you sell products, sell them for Satoshis. If you provide a service, ask to get paid in Satoshis, and then you can trade for them. You can trade fiat for the Bitcoin. But you do this with peer-to-peer. This was the original way. I don't think there was much conversation before Mt. Gox popped up, like the first sort of big Bitcoin exchange.
Okay, I was like, I don't know what that is.
Right. Well, it was like the first large-scale centralized exchange where you can take your dollars and get Bitcoin for them. Before that, I would like if I had dollars and I wanted Bitcoin and you had Bitcoin, stores weren't taking Bitcoin yet, so you had to pay in cash. Yeah. So we sort of bartered, right? I would hook up with you and be like, here's $100, and you're like, here's $100 worth of Bitcoin, and now you have the dollars, I have the Bitcoin. Yeah. Now that is the most private way to transact, because what did I have to tell you about me? Yeah. You don't have to know my name. You don't have to know anything. Yeah. The most you'll know is maybe what I look like. Yeah. Right? And now there's ways using things like localbitcoin.com and Bisq Network, and there's a few others, where you can still do these sort of peer-to-peer exchanges without having to disclose all this personal information about yourself.
That's good to know.
So that was the original sort of how. And then Mt. Gox came along and the convenience. I mean, there's always a problem with convenience. Yeah. No different than like privacy. I'm a big privacy buff. That's why I'm not on Facebook. Because of the privacy aspect. However, I lose a huge swath of convenience. There's a ton of people I've lost contact with switching phones. I want to reconnect with them. And I know they're on Facebook, but I have to ask, is getting back in touch with this person worth giving up my privacy on Facebook? Yeah. For me, no. There's nobody I need to contact that importantly. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And the same thing, it's like you want some Bitcoin, but there's nobody locally, and you don't want to go through the efforts of learning how to use local Bitcoin, downloading a program like Bisq. There's no place to meet in your local area where you can do exchanges in a safe way. You don't want to just meet somebody in the alley to trade up some Bitcoin or anything, right? Yeah. So the convenience of a centralized exchange, popped up, and even though peer-to-peer was the original mission, the convenience exchanges offer. And so it's just part of life, right? I don't want to see anybody on social media, but hey, I'm even on some social media. Yeah. It's sort of unavoidable. So now the next question is, how do I reduce my my access and trusting other people in that system? And that's where self-custody comes into play. So like you said, you go to like a Coinbase or Kraken, and you trust them. You have to give them, especially if you're in the U.S. I believe most of this is true in the EU. It's Canada. Most most countries, at least most of the Western sort of countries, you have some kind of KYC, AML, know your customer, anti-money law stuff, anti-money laundering laws. So to use Coinbase, what I'm going to give up for the convenience of using Coinbase is I'm going to give up my name, my phone number, my address, my social security number, my job, how much money I make. There's a whole list of this detailed information that I give them about picture, and now some of them are so ludicrous with the requests. It's not just that, as if that wasn't enough, but then they want like a selfie of you,
a live,
right, with you, like here's a live selfie with my ID and like a newspaper article and this statement written on a piece of paper, and it's like all the. I don't know how that's more convenient all of a sudden than just peer-to-peer, but people do it. And that's the risk they take. So you're going to go through all these things for the convenience of being able to hook your bank account or a credit card directly up to this exchange and at a push of a button say, I want $50 of Bitcoin, or I want $50 of whatever.
Well, I would even like argue that there's a lot of people who don't know that there are other ways outside of a centralized exchange. Because like I never knew that until I started like going to meetups and like meeting you and other people who were like, oh no, there's definitely other ways you could get your hands on some Bitcoin other than like basically selling your soul.
Yeah, well, this is another side effect of like the masses are coming, or mass adoption is people are going to flock towards the easiest point.
Right, yeah.
And now you have things like Cash App, which make it so it's like, hey, you already got a Cash App? Cool, just click a button.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll make you KYC to move it, but you don't have to KYC to like get it, because they already know who you are because you got a Cash App.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if there was a question in there. I don't.
No, I was just like, so you have to. So you said they don't make you KYC to get it, but when you like, let's say I had Cash App, I bought Bitcoin, and I wanted to send it to you. When I want to go to send my Bitcoin to you, that's when I KYC, like the.
Oh, well, with Cash App, yeah.
Okay.
But once you
But it doesn't really matter.
KYC once. The thing is, before you can do anything with any kind of centralized entity, they have to know everything about you.
Yeah.
So in your example with the Coinbase, you go on, you buy from the Coinbase. So again, it's how you minimize that trust. So the next thing you want to do is, as soon as you purchase it, well, it can't be as soon in most cases, because unless you buy with credit card. If you buy with credit card, you're paying extra fees, so you've increased your costs, but you are allowed to take instant custody. If you pay with a bank transfer, even though we all know most the money is just data entries, right? It still takes them 7 days to process the transaction. So you buy it today on Coinbase, and then 4 to 7 days later, they're like, oh, now the money's good. Now you can take custody.
Right, yeah. Once they give you permission to spend your own money.
Exactly. You now have permission to, the bank gave you permission to spend your money, and now Coinbase gives you permission to move your money.
Yeah.
Once you have that, what many people do is leave it right on the exchange.
Right.
Again, a sign of convenience. They're not trading. They're not looking to do anything.
Yeah.
If you look at them on Twitter or Reddit or whatever, they're all calling themselves hodlers of whatever the token they're holding is. But they're not hodlers, because they're not holding nothing. Coinbase is holding it.
Yeah.
And they realize that when something, to sort of date when this episode came out, we're just living through the FTX exchange fiasco. And there were regular people, investing people, institutions, like teacher retirement funds, all of these things were tied in and kept their money on FTX. Their money on FTX.
Like on the exchange.
On the exchange.
It's like probably like hackers and stuff are probably like, oh, like, yay, like there's a big pot here. Like
you don't even need to go to the hackers. FTX just was like, one day somebody went in, this was all a triggered thing. I won't get into the details of the story, but at the end of the day, one day you had your money on FTX. The next day you're like, oh, it's my money. I'm going to withdraw it and do something else with it. And FTX was like, nah,
Yeah.
Nope. They did that because they didn't really have your money.
Yeah.
But this is the risk of using a centralized exchange.
Right.
You can't see it, right? An open, permissionless, censorship-resistant blockchain, you can look at it and see where the funds are, right? If I'm a peer-to-peer and I give you $100 and you send me $100 worth of Bitcoin, I can literally look at the blockchain and see exactly when I got it. Like, oh, I have it.
Yeah.
I've just audited the system, right? With FTX, Coinbase, Kraken, you're just trusting them. You know you sent them $100 because your bank's like, well, we just gave you $100 to this place.
Yeah.
Coinbase says we got your $100, but there's no way to look at the blockchain and say, oh, there it is. There's my $100.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're just really doing no different than what the Federal Reserve and banks do. They just put an entry. Right. I owe Nate $100 worth of Bitcoin.
Right.
I haven't given Nate $100 worth of Bitcoin, but I owe it. And that's all you have until you try to withdraw it. And that's what happened with this FTX thing. People start trying to withdraw. Too many people withdraw. They don't have one-to-one reserves like they're supposed to have, like they promised they would have. And boom, your money's gone.
It was like a run on the bank, basically.
It wasn't exactly a run on the bank.
Yeah.
Right? And now there's not even an FDIC or anything to protect, the retailers on it. They're too busy going after, Kim Kardashian.
So is there something that is convenient that is like a self-custody option?
Well, there's multiple ways to take self-custody. So even if we meet face-to-face, like, well, what do you use to get the Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Or if you go through an exchange, as soon as I'm in an exchange and they let you withdraw it, where do I withdraw it to? And you withdraw it to what's called a wallet, right?
Okay.
And there's two main classes of wallets. One is called a hot wallet, and it's called hot because it's connected to the internet, right? And then there's a cold wallet, and it's called a cold wallet because it's not connected to the internet.
And would the internet kind of be like, almost like it could potentially be a back door to like lose your...
Yeah, the danger, if anybody over the age of 3 has spent more than like 10 minutes on the internet, you'll know there's billions of dangers, right, and security risks. And so, again, if you're storing wealth or even just spending money in like Bitcoin or whatever, you don't want to leave. It's like walking around. I don't walk around with my wallet full of dollar bills pinned to my chest.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I want to sort of secure that someplace. Yeah. I want to keep it away from public view as much as possible. And my big savings, I definitely want to keep away, right?
Yeah.
So when you use a hot wallet, and that could be anything that you're using on your mobile phone, anything you're using directly on your computer, any kind of browser extension like MetaMask, anything that like lives on your computer, that's a hot wallet, right? A cold wallet is separated from that. So you have a couple options. There are many options out there. I'll only name a couple because they've been around for a while, and I remember this is about trust minimization.
Yeah.
So while not a full endorsement of these products, they've been around, and they've been working for people for for a long, long time. And that's Ledger and Trezor. Right? These are two methods. They're basically like USB devices. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that, but it's basically a USB device that stores your keys. All right? I know we talk a lot about like wallets, and I'm going to send you Bitcoin, and you're going to send me Ethereum, and I'm going to send you whatever. That's not really what's happening in these systems. Bitcoin lives on the Bitcoin blockchain, and it never leaves. Ethereum lives on the Ethereum blockchain. It never leaves. It's not going to your wallet. What your wallet is this little key that lets you unlock that piece of the ledger and move the Bitcoins from your wallet from your account on the ledger to another person's account on the ledger. So your wallet's just like a key manager.
So it's like a piece of like hardware. Is that safe to say?
Well, the cold wallet?
Yeah.
It's a piece of hardware that has a piece of software inside of it.
Okay.
And that piece of software stores your keys.
And it gives you access to like your slice of Bitcoin on the blockchain, kind of.
Yeah. It's like, all right, Ashlee has permission to send this Bitcoin, this amount of Bitcoin. So but the blockchain won't operate until you sort of sign the transaction digitally with your keys.
And then the keys are kind of like...
It's like a password.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say it's
just think of it like a password.
Okay.
And so where is that password sitting? This is the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet, right? A hot wallet, it's that password, even though you write it down, most people familiar with, if you've done any of this, you've seen a wallet and it's going to make you write down 12 words to 24 words. That's sort of your password.
Like it's called the seed phrase, right?
Your seed phrase, your mnemonic, yep. You write that down. That's written down for your convenience. So if you ever lose access to the software that you're using or the hardware, the device that your wallet's sitting on, you can always recover it. But it's still sitting on your computer. Just because you wrote it down doesn't mean it doesn't exist on your computer, right? And so if you use any wallets, MetaMask, Exodus, Blue Wallet, Wallet of Satoshi, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Any wallet you use, it's going to store that seed phrase in your computer. And so if somebody can gain access to your computer, they can gain access to your phrase still. And this is what happened, I think it was over the summer or maybe spring of this year, 2022. People found that they were using MetaMask on their phones, and all of a sudden their accounts are starting to get drained. And they didn't understand like how this was happening.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is when MetaMask is on your phone or your computer, it has to store the secret. It has to store that seed phrase. Yeah. Stores it locally, but your phone is always connected to the internet.
Right.
And even worse than that, people who use iCloud backup, it backs up your entire phone, right, from the root install.
Until anyone...
And then that gets uploaded to an iCloud server. So somebody was able to, they didn't hack the blockchain, they didn't hack MetaMask, they hacked iCloud. And they pulled down all these phone backups. And when they opened up the phone backup, they looked for the file that contains your secret phrase, and that's no different than having your phone. Yikes. So they had the secret phrase, and once you have that secret seed, you can just pull the funds out and send it to another wallet, right? So it wasn't a MetaMask security flaw, it was just a fundamental way of how backing up your phone. So if you're going to keep like a hot wallet on your phone, you should definitely not be backing up your phone to the cloud, right? You should use, I don't back up my phone to the cloud. Yeah. Only USB right into another computer that I control, right? So these issues don't happen.
I don't think many people know that.
Well, if they listen to this episode, they know now. And if they were exploited earlier this year, they also know.
Yes.
But these are the risks of hot wallets, right? Every hot wallet is just a risk to this. Alternatively, if you used a cold wallet, I use Trezor, you can use Ledger, and there's a few others. That key is on the device. So when I start a new wallet, right, that key is generated locally on this device. Okay. Not connected to the internet. It's not sitting on my computer. That key is never on my computer. And when I need to type in the key, I type it in on the device. I don't use the keyboard on my computer or phone. I don't trust the screen on my computer or phone. My computer and anything connected to the network has nothing to do with it. All I trust is this one device that's never connected to the internet. Well, it's never directly like linked into the internet, right? Then when I want to sign a transaction because I want to send you some Ethereum, I would plug in my wallet into the computer. I would use any wallet. Most wallets will work with a Trezor, so I could still, let's say, what kind of, do you use a wallet, a hot wallet?
No.
All right.
I mean, I have Wallet of Satoshi, is that?
All right, so if you're using Wallet of Satoshi, your Wallet of Satoshi will work with a cold storage wallet, so I could plug it in, open up Wallet Satoshi. When Wallet Satoshi opens up and say, hey, I don't see a wallet here. And you're like, no, I got a wallet. It's here. And it's going to read from the Trezor. You're not going to enter your key phrase, your seed phrase into the Wallet Satoshi. Right? You're not going to put any of that information. That lives on your cold storage. Wallet Satoshi will see it. Be like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'll say, all right, Wallet Satoshi, now that you're seeing my Trezor, send Ashlee a Bitcoin. and it'll be like, all right, sending, and then your Trezor wallet will pop up, little screen on your Trezor wallet will pop up and say, hey, somebody's trying to send some Bitcoin. Do you want to allow it? And then you have to enter in like your PIN code. You know, you have to sign the transaction right in the cold wallet.
Okay.
Once it'll send an authorization through to your wallet of Satoshi and say, here's the signature, and then Wallet Satoshi will complete the transaction for us, right?
Okay.
But now if somebody gains access to my computer and they find out I have Wallet Satoshi and they know how to find the seed phrase through that, there's no seed phrase.
Interesting.
Right? Because it lives on my cold storage wallet. And when I'm not using it, I unplug it from my computer, and I'm good. This is the barrier from me and the internet.
It kind of reminds me a little bit like if I were to go in the bank and try to do something, and then they have this like piece of like a device, and you type in your PIN code there, and it's not connected to their computer. It's like a separate thing. I don't know if you've ever had to use that. Yeah. Is that kind of similar? I mean, they don't ever unplug it, so like.
Yeah, because that's still sort of connected there. But if you think of it, this is not a one-to-one comparison, but it's probably a good way to get your mind around it, is just think of, this is a horrible example. Think of it sort of like your debit card. If all of your money actually sat on your debit card, right? Yeah. So imagine the bank didn't have any of the money, that was literally all on the debit card. Yeah. And then when you want to spend it, instead of...
like a gift card is what holds it. Like it holds it.
Well, all of them, they're still sitting in the centralized server thing. Okay. But if you imagine a gift card or a debit card, the money was actually on the card, that would sort of be the cold wallet, right? So when you scan, it's like, hey, I'm just tapping this, and I got to put in this PIN number, and by putting in your PIN number, you're authorizing to send X amount of dollars. But other than that card is in your pocket, in your purse, in your wallet, whatever. It's disconnected from the internet. Nobody can just come up and hack into it.
So, like, if you were to lose your cold wallet, such as a Trezor or Ledger, you don't lose your Bitcoin. It's on your Bitcoin's still on the blockchain, right? So
Bitcoin is always on the blockchain.
So if you lost that wallet,
as long as each of the wallets will have some kind of like a PIN code you have to put in. So as long as they don't know the PIN code, it's safe. All they have is a piece of hardware. And if you guess the PIN code so many times wrong, it just crashes the whole drive. And as long as you have your seed phrase backed up, you can just go grab another wallet.
That's what I was going to ask.
You can go straight to a hot wallet. You can do anything. As long as you got your seed phrase backed up and secured, you're good. And now, if they grab the Trezor and, like, you don't remember your PIN code, so you write the PIN code down and tape it to the back of it, well, they got all your money. Yeah. Because they can now sign your transactions.
Yeah.
Okay,
interesting.
So, you have your hot wallets, you have your cold wallets. There's several steps to take. A lot of people feel like that's too much work for most of them with the seed phrases, but as we just said earlier, think about all the steps you have to go through to KYC. You just went through like an hour of KYCing, right? Yeah. So what's 5 minutes writing down a seed phrase and locking it away? Get a little fire safe and hide it in your house.
I think it's more like people like think it's confusing and hard. It's just something new. And a lot of people are not big fans of change. Yes. And learning like a new process of doing something. But I think it will become more and more second nature. I know that even myself, I feel that way. But I feel that once I do it a couple times, I think that it will just be like something that we do. Like when we're just so used to filling out our information. So, when information, like when you used to have to fill out your information, it used to be like so annoying. And now it's like a little less annoying. I mean, it's still annoying, but it's like just part of life.
Yeah. And, one of the tropes in the entire crypto community is, we're early. Yeah. And, arguably, and some spectrums, we are really early, like user interface, things like this. But we've come such a long way, right? In 2022, using MetaMask or any other kind of hot wallet is really sort of stupid simple. Like if writing down 12 words is the hardest thing, you probably don't have any money to, store because you're not going to make it in life. Yeah. But the things people used to do there's a time in Bitcoin where there weren't mnemonic seed phrases. So you actually had to save like an actual hashed key and a QR code and print it out on paper. And wow. The user interface has gotten tremendously better, and I expect it'll still get better. There are still people working on how do you even make this system better while keeping it decentralized. Block, which used to be Square, which is a company that owns Cash App, which is Jack Dorsey and all of them. Like, they're working on something. They had a proposal. I don't know how it would fully work because they're still working on it, but they're working on a way of doing like self-custody where you're always using like a multi-sig, multiple signatures, right? So typically I could just send you Bitcoin and I would just sign it and it's gone. But maybe you have family savings, right? And you and your significant other have an account where you both want to control it, and so you put that under a multi-sig, right, where it requires 2 of your signatures out of 3 possible signatures, and each one of you keep a signature, and you take a third signature and store that away someplace. So if one of you lose a key, lose access, you always have that backup one, but neither of you can spend it independently. Right? You can't just go take the Bitcoin. Yeah. You need to sign it, and he needs to sign it in order for it to send. And so they're talking about building a system similar where it's like, all right, here's what we'll do. We'll have like this 3 of 5 type signature. We need 3 signatures or 2 of 5, something. Yeah. I'll always have 2 of those keys or 1 of them so I can send it myself, or I can authorize the signature from a couple of them. But then I would take 1 backup and give it to a trusted person in my network. Detroit Blockchain Center, we're a nonprofit. We're here to just sort of teach crypto education. Yeah. So maybe you would trust us to 1 key, and we would offer that service. We can't do anything with it. We can't spend it. We can't do anything with it on our own. We can't do anything with it. Right. Then you would use more of a enterprise level. Find somebody, maybe it's Google you trust, maybe it's Block you trust, maybe it's Facebook you trust. You're crazy, but maybe it's right. You give it to some larger institution, third party, but they can't do anything on their own. Right. And the way the key structure is set up, if Detroit Blockchain Center and you gave it to Google, we got together. Yeah. Even though we got 2 keys, we still can't do anything without it, right?
Because you weren't like the initial
because you have to have like this. Right. I don't want to get into it because, I don't really know it complex. But basically, you, the user, you have everything you need. But if you lose your keys, right, as long as you remember like the certain password, you can come to one of us, get the backup of the key, that along with like this password only you can restore your access. So you don't have to worry about losing custody. There's always a backup out there.
And so when you're saying signature, is that the same thing as like the key? And
yeah, computer programmers and stuff love to have crappy definitions. So wallets, keys, and signatures have nothing to do with each other, but they're all sort of referencing the exact same things, right? Okay. You have a key, which gives you need to get access to the blockchain. You get that by when you put the key in, you sign the key, right? That doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then when you're not using the key, you store it in your wallet,
right?
Which doesn't store keys, right? So the terminology is garbage. But the thing, as long as you realize terminology is garbage, so don't try to make sense of it through the common usage of the words, right? A wallet, if appropriately named, would probably be redefined as a keychain, because where do you keep keys? On a keychain. So a wallet should really be called a keychain. And then maybe you're not signing it, maybe you're twisting the transactions. You twist the key. I don't know, but it's computer science language. It makes sense to a computer scientist. It doesn't make sense to your everyday person.
Me.
Right? So I think there's some value up front in realizing it's not you who doesn't get it. It's bad terminology. Yeah. It's really bad terminology. But
it's something that will come with like time and
the time and the space. You'll get to know it, and it's really knowing the concepts. And even better is as time goes on, you won't need to know it. Because if I said, hey, is your SMPT connection secured on a local server? And you're like, huh?
I don't know what you just said to me.
Right. You don't need to know, but you still know how to work like email.
Yeah, I do.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like all you need to know is a to address and a from address.
Yeah. So like eventually it'll evolve to where it will be more user friendly, for lack of.
Correct. Yeah, it was first we had to get the technology, and I say I did zero contributions to any of these things. I just talk about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
But first, the technology, the soundness, the security, the cryptography, the basics had to be done first.
Yeah.
Because what point is it to make a very useful system that's not very useful? So first, you had to do that. Well, if you look at a bunch of crypto projects, they might disagree. Like, hey, let's just
throw
fundraise.
something together, yeah.
But yeah, first you had to build a useful system. Now, some projects are still trying to figure it out. Projects like Bitcoin, where there's less changes happening, so now you can focus on different areas.
Yeah.
Right? They're not trying to still innovate in these huge ways, so they can start focusing on other things like user interfaces and interactions and whatnot. And there's still a long way to go. You were at the, I don't know if I want to get into that, but there's still a long way to go, right? But yeah, so that's pretty much the whys and the hows. I don't know if there's anything I missed in that. Do you have any more?
Well, can we talk about maybe like some decentralized exchanges? Is that something that's like can you have like, so a lot of people will buy stuff on centralized exchanges. Is there a way, is it possible to buy things on decentralized exchanges? I know that there's something called DEX, and that's like decentralized exchanges. Is that like similar or different? Like, so
I would argue decentralized exchanges are a philosophy and not a reality yet. And all of decentralized exchanges is, it's the opposite of a centralized exchange. So Coinbase is a centralized exchange.
Yeah.
Really, theoretically, what's happening on Coinbase is you go to Coinbase and you say, I got $100. I need $100 worth of Bitcoin. You give them $100, and they're either going to look for somebody selling $100 worth of Bitcoin, or they'll have their own stash that they're going to sell you for $100, right? But you have to trust that third-party entity, right? A decentralized exchange would match buyers and sellers. So earlier we talked about peer-to-peer.
Oh, okay.
So you will go to a decentralized exchange and shout out, hey, I'm selling 100 Bitcoin for $100. And then I'd be on the other end and I'd be looking and I'd say, oh, there's somebody. And I'm looking to buy 100. They're looking to sell 100. So we'll do a swap.
It's like placing ads, kind of. Like you go on there, and not really, but like.
Think of it like a swap meet.
Yeah.
It's like a big old swap meet, and you got a bunch of people buying and a bunch of people selling, and they sort of mix.
Like a Craigslist-y thing.
Yep. So that would be a decentralized exchange. However, it's really a bad name. I think it's an important concept. I think we're working towards it. But like I just said, with like Bitcoin's sort of done building the technological layer, and now they have to build sort of the scalability and usability layers. Decentralized exchanges are still working on the technical layers. A better name for a decentralized exchange right now is sort of open finance. And the difference would be decentralized exchange means, think of it just like a decentralized network. It's peer-to-peer. Nobody is there.
So it's like
that
custody to custody too is another way to look at it, because you could still be self-custody doing that.
The issue with decentralized exchanges right now is you have to trust the underlying network, and so Ethereum would be the closest you have to that, and that's where most of DeFi happens. And you can have these it's based off of smart contract platforms, But this adds another layer of complexity to the whole equation, right? Blockchains by themselves are complex enough, right? They're very difficult to get your total brain around the entire thing of them, right? Now add on top of that smart contracts, which is like a programming language on top of a blockchain. And you need a smart contract to really do decentralized finance, but then what you'll end up hearing is all these hacks that happen with decentralized exchanges. You still have to have the user interfaces, which are always centrally controlled, depending on the base layer. If it's truly permissionless, anybody can make a token. So how do you know that token is really worth anything? This is the FTT thing, right? This is what just happened with FTX and the exchange. They just created their own little money.
But what if you're like a hardcore Bitcoiner? But
there is no decentralized exchange for you.
Oh.
They don't exist because they're hard to build and be secure and be decentralized and have any kind of usability and scalability. So what I would look at, what I would define everything people call DeFi now, I would define that more as open finance. Because the one thing you can do, if it's built on an open blockchain, you can look and see all the smart contracts. You can go into a block explorer and read them. You can see what's happening there. But you still have to trust. There's a lot of trust assumptions. We talked earlier about minimizing trust. There's a lot of trust. So it's open. Anybody can see it. Anybody can interact with it. But it's not, I wouldn't call it trustless yet. And that's one of the things they're working on in the Bitcoin ecosystem and a bunch of ecosystems, right? Some think you have to do this on layer one, on the actual blockchain. Bitcoiners take the approach of, well, maybe we can do like a layer two chain, this stack on top of Bitcoin to do it, similar to like the Lightning Network. There's different approaches. I think DeFi is coming. That would be the better solution than a centralized exchange. And when they're really, really plausible and easy to use, I think centralized exchanges will be in much more trouble as far as having any usefulness.
Okay, and I have another question. So when I'm going to take it back to the cold wallets. So you need to have those keys and phrases. How do you secure those keys and phrases if you can't take a screenshot or put it in your computer, or like what's a safe way to secure your keys?
Keep it simple. Just write it down.
Yeah.
Store it away.
Yeah.
Now, where you store it, I mean, you don't want to store it like in your junk drawer, because especially if you're keeping any significant amount of value in it. But, like I said, you can take it, just write it down. Some people, there's paper pencil. Some people use, they got like these steel cards you can use to punch in the secret phrase on a steel card. That way, if your house catches on fire or something, the paper will burn up, the steel won't. Yeah. But if you take like your paper phrase, you can get a little fire resistant.
Like a lamination thing?
No, not a lamination. They're like the pouch. It's like a pouch. You can put that in a pouch and take that pouch and put it into like a fire resistant safe.
Oh, like a black box situation.
Yeah, and then they're here, and all of that costs like maybe a couple $100. And then just store it, just like you can store your passport in there and anything else, where you keep the family jewels and everything else valuable. Just get a little safe and slap it in there, and you're set. The more complicated you make it, you can go way more complicated, but the more complicated you make it, the more likely you are to lose it. People try to chop it up and hide it in different books, or people. Yeah. You can memorize it. That's the strength of this whole thing. You can memorize it. However, you don't get to dictate when you lose your memory. Yeah. And so now you're trusting all of that. So I would still keep memorizing's fine, but still have a backup. Yeah. But there's a lot of ways. I would keep it simple. Don't advertise how you're personally backing it up. That way people don't know where to look when they gain access. Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I have, I think, for today.
All right. So to summarize then, I started off with, tell me about self-custody in your view. Yeah. Tell me about self-custody in your view now. What is it? Why is it important?
Well, it's important so that, I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. It's important so that way you have control and power over what happens to your money. And I think that that's like the most important thing.
How do you do it?
You can have, the best way is a cold wallet, and store your keys in a secure place, and try not to connect it to the internet. I guess that's really all I got.
I think that's all you need. It's not as hard as people make it out to be.
But as I'm trying to explain it, I'm like, I feel like I need to say more, but that's it.
That's it. Yep. Trust minimize. That's the approach to everything when you're dealing with anything here. Minimize trust. If you're, whether it's Bitcoin or something else that you're getting into, if the idea is minimizing trust from third parties, then don't add trust in when you don't need to.
Don't add a third party.
Right. So that's it. I'd say you have a good, your explanation in the beginning was pretty good. Though it was the sort of the how I think that you're a little more fuzzy on.
Yeah.
That now you've given a much clearer answer.
I feel like I'm ready to go give it a try now. Like,
okay. Go give it a try.
At the beginning of this episode, I was kind of like, I know about it, but like, do I want to do it? Not really.
Yep. You definitely do. One thing I'll give tip to for people who are looking at cold storage, the wallets, they're getting cheaper, cold storage wallets, but a safety tip, only buy a cold storage wallet from the manufacturer.
Oh, yeah.
Do not get it from Amazon. Do not, if you're walking through Best Buy and you see one, do not get it, because again, it's about trust minimization.
Yeah. No Craigslist, no Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. Don't spend money. Don't use a wallet that didn't come directly from the manufacturer. That doesn't make it 100% safe, but at least it goes from them to you. If you, let's say, just go to Best Buy, it goes from Best Buy, or it goes from the manufacturer through this whole supply chain until it hits the Best Buy shelf, and you don't know what happened and who did anything with it.
That's a very good point.
Don't trust, verify. At least the manufacturer has an aligned incentive. They have a reputation in business. Yeah. They have an aligned incentive to make sure you get a pure, good working product, which is why I only name Ledger and Treasure, because they have years of history without having, problems like that.
Yeah.
Buy it directly from the manufacturer, and they're not cheap, right? They're not super expensive, but there's anywhere from $50 to $100 or so. So if you only have $200 worth of crypto, does it make sense to spend half of that on a cold wallet? Right?
No, not really.
A hot wallet is probably fine for you for now. Still get it off the exchange.
Yeah.
Keep your keys, right? But you probably don't need to spend the extra money. You have to do a cost analysis. When do I have enough money where spending an additional $100 just to protect it is worth it?
Yeah.
And that's when you should probably go get the cold storage wallet.
Yeah.
So that's how we'll sum it up. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
If you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, if you're seeing us on a TikTok clip, no matter where you're seeing us, drop us a like, share it, subscribe, do all those good things.
And also, you can reach out and ask us questions if you still don't understand what we're talking about up here.
Yeah. Reach out. I'm usually on Twitter, so you can find us on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. All of them are at The Blockument. So reach out. Hashtag The Blockument with questions. Drop it on our page. Reach out. You can come to our website, theblockument.com, to see the archive of our shows, show notes, extra resources for you. And
next week's episode, also just so you know, is going to be DYOR, which is do your own homework. So, like, what does that mean and where to begin?
That's right. Do your own research. What does it mean and where to begin, right? So thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I tell everybody, my little catchphrase here, come for the riches.
Stay for the revolution.
That's right. We'll see you, everybody, next time.
Yeah, that's right. Bye.
All right.